I didn't cry at the courthouse. Not when the judge called my name. Not when I saw my father sitting beside my mother, both dressed like it was Sunday service. Not like they were about to stab me legally. And not even when my sister refused to look me in the eye. I just sat down, folded my hands in my lap, and waited. Because, by that point, I had run out of ways to ask why. I'd been working since I was 16. First at a frozen yogurt shop, then nights at a warehouse. Never asked for a dime. Never got one. Not even on birthdays. When I told my parents I got a full ride to college, they said, "Don't get cocky. Your sister could have too, if she applied herself." So I worked harder. Picked up jobs. Paid for books. Paid for everything. And when I fell in love, I didn't expect help. I planned every detail of the wedding alone. Every dollar, from the venue deposit to the last fork on the last table, came from me. So when I saw the envelope taped to our apartment door 3 weeks later, I thought it was junk mail. But inside was a court notice, filed by my own parents, claiming I'd financially sabotaged my sister's future, that I'd set a standard she could never meet, and that my selfish choices had publicly humiliated the family. They were suing me for emotional damages, asking for $200,000 as a lesson. And the worst part? I remember once, years ago, my sister held my hand and whispered, "You're the only one who ever makes me feel safe." Now she sat across from me, beside them, silent. The judge looked up. "Ms. Danner, do you have legal representation?" I opened my mouth, but the sound that came wasn't mine. From the back row, a deep voice answered, "Yes, she does." Everyone turned, and there he stood, my husband's estranged brother, the man who hadn't spoken to our family in 12 years, a trial lawyer, in a sharp gray suit. He walked past my parents like they were shadows, and sat beside me. He didn't smile, didn't even glance my way. He just opened a leather case, pulled out a folder, and whispered, "Don't speak unless I tell you to." I nodded, stunned. This was Cade, my husband's older brother, the family ghost, disappeared after their mother died. No one really talked about him, only that he'd changed after law school, that he wasn't the same. Now he was defending me. The judge began, monotone and unimpressed. My parents' lawyer read their statement. They spoke of damage to family reputation, of my competitive and attention-seeking behavior. They said my success had mentally destabilized my sister. And then they played a video. It was me dancing at my wedding, laughing, holding my husband's hand. "She posted this," their lawyer said coldly. "It went viral." I wanted to laugh, or scream, or disappear. Instead, I stared at my sister. She looked down, until the lawyer said, "And here's what her sister was doing that same day." A still image. My sister alone in her room, red eyes, unopened college application on the desk. She missed her deadlines, the lawyer said, and her mental health declined because of her sister's relentless perfectionism. I could feel the oxygen leaving my chest. The room blurred, but Cade stood, unbothered. He approached the bench like he'd been born in courtrooms. Then he pulled out something I hadn't seen in years. A small white envelope with red ink handwriting. I leaned in. My heart dropped. It was the letter I had written to my sister the night I got engaged. She never responded. He read it out loud, softly. "I know I'm not the sister you wanted, but I hope one day I'll be the one you're proud of." Silence. You could hear the clock ticking. Then Kate looked at my parents and asked, "Do either of you recall what you said to her the day she announced her wedding?" My mom shifted. My dad crossed his arms. Cade turned to the judge. "I have it in writing. Shall I read it?" The judge nodded. He opened another page. "Don't expect us to fund a circus. If you want a wedding, pay for it yourself." Then he added she did. Every dollar. They didn't blink. Didn't flinch. Not when the letter was read. Not when Cade recited the receipts. Catering, dress, venue, photographer, all of it. $43,700. Every cent from my savings. Not a dime from them. And yet, they sat there like I had stolen their legacy. The judge asked if I had anything to say. My lips parted, but nothing came out. Because how do you explain a lifetime of emotional exile? How do you list the birthdays they forgot? The way they always introduced me as the independent one. Like that was a flaw? How do you say, I never asked for anything, and maybe that's why you gave me nothing? But Cade, he knew. He walked back to our table, slow and composed. Then he opened his final document. I saw my sister's name at the top. Academic probation letter, he said quietly. Dated 2 months before my wedding. Her grades were already failing, he told the court. And the reason listed here is not sibling pressure. It's unauthorized use of tuition funds. Gasps. The courtroom shifted. He let that hang in the air like thunder before the storm. Then he added, Your Honor, my client didn't steal her future. Her sister sold it. My parents went pale. I turned, and for the first time, my mother looked uncertain. But my father, he stood. Enough of this circus, he barked. We gave her life, and this is how she repays us? That's when Cade stood up too, slow, calm, voice sharp as glass. You didn't give her life. You sued it. The silence was brutal. Even the court reporter stopped typing. My heart cracked. But I didn't cry. I finally breathed. Outside the courtroom, cameras had already gathered. Someone had leaked the case. And when the media asked who I was, I finally answered. I'm the daughter they tried to erase. But I'm still here. The article spread like wildfire. Bride sued by her own parents, sister's jealousy exposed in court. By morning, my inbox was flooded. Strangers wrote to say they saw themselves in me. Survivors of golden child dynamics. People who were always told, You're strong. You don't need help. But there was one email that stopped me cold. It was from Ms. Rayburn, my high school counselor. She wrote, I always knew something was off when your parents never came to parent-teacher night, but I never imagined this. I'm sorry. Funny how the deepest cuts don't come from strangers. They come from the people who are supposed to protect your softest parts. Cade and I sat at the kitchen table, wedding photos untouched in a silver box beside us. He watched me open a small velvet pouch, the one that held the pendant I wore on our wedding day. It was my grandmother's, the only family heirloom I'd ever been given. Quiet, gold, engraved with the word, resilient. They want it back, I said quietly. It was technically passed down through their side. Cade raised an eyebrow, and I held it tighter. And they'll have to take it from my cold, healed hands. For a moment, we just sat in the silence. Then I asked the question that had haunted me since the hearing. Was I wrong to fight back? Cade didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled up an old photo on his phone, me at 19, working the night shift, smiling in my grease-stained apron. You've been fighting your whole life, he whispered. This time they just saw it. That night, I stared at my ceiling and remembered something my dad once told my sister. She'll never be the soft one. She doesn't know how to cry. He was wrong. I had learned how to cry. I just stopped needing their permission. And somewhere between that courtroom and our quiet kitchen, I learned something else. You don't owe your abuser silence, even if they share your blood. I pressed send on one final email. It wasn't to them. It was to a national podcast. The subject line? My family took me to court for being independent. I have receipts. They tried to stop the episode from airing. First came the cease and desist letters. Then calls from a family lawyer I'd never met saying things like, This could ruin your father's professional reputation. And, Think about what you're doing to your sister's mental health. But no one, not one person, asked what they'd already done to mine. The podcast went live anyway. It opened with my voice, steady but tired. I'm not here for pity. I'm here because I worked 3 jobs to build a life, and they sued me for it. Within 48 hours, my story was trending. Hashtag sued by family. Hashtag not your scapegoat. Hashtag bride who fought back. The comments broke me in the best way. My sister did this too, and no one believed me. My mom sold my college fund and blamed me for being ungrateful. This is the first time I feel seen. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. An anonymous email. No subject. Just a video file. It was my sister, crying in her car, voice shaking. They're lying to you too, she whispered. I didn't want to sue you. Mom made me. She said if I didn't agree, she'd cut me off completely. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I sat frozen, watching the timestamp. It had been recorded the morning after the court hearing. She'd never sent it. Until now. Cade came over and watched silently, then said, She's not your villain. They are. She's just still afraid. I didn't reply. I was too full. Of confusion. Of grief. Of the unbearable pressure of being the one who broke the cycle, and the one they all blamed for it. That night, I didn't cry. Instead, I wrote a new kind of letter. Not one filled with anger or apology, but acceptance. I no longer needed them to see me. I just needed to stop bleeding for people who would never even admit they caused the wound. The judge's decision came in quietly. An email. A PDF. No courtroom fanfare. Case dismissed. Plaintiff's claims found baseless. All legal fees to be paid by the plaintiff. I reread it 3 times. No celebration. Just silence. Cade read over my shoulder and let out a slow breath. You won. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like standing in the wreckage of a war you never asked to fight. The lawsuit was gone, but so was something else. I hadn't spoken to my parents in 6 weeks. No calls. No texts. Not even a holiday card. And the silence, at first, was peaceful. Then strange. Then something I started to prefer. Until one night I got another message. From a news outlet. Subject: requesting comment on ongoing civil dispute between your full name and parents' names. I blinked. They'd gone public. They gave an interview. Sat down in coordinated outfits on a morning TV couch and spun a story about a bitter daughter, a jealous bride, and how they'd only wanted to protect their younger child's chance at a happy future. I watched it in silence, heart rate steady, face blank, until they showed a photo of me in my wedding dress. A photo they weren't authorized to have. Caption: a strange daughter who allegedly stole spotlight and money. I turned off the TV, called my lawyer, then called someone else. The producer of the podcast I'd spoken on. They offered me a second episode, a follow-up. A full visual interview. This time, I didn't hesitate. I sat in that studio, wore the same shoes I wore to my wedding, the ones I bought on clearance after saving for months. And I told the truth. About the lawsuit. About the manipulation. About the silence that followed my strength. And when they asked me, what do you want your parents to feel when they watch this? I looked straight at the camera and whispered, nothing. I'm done giving them anything to feel. The episode dropped on a Tuesday. By Wednesday night, it had crossed 4 million views. Comments poured in. She's the definition of grace. This is what breaking the cycle looks like. I hope her parents feel the silence now. I didn't reply to any of them. I just turned off notifications, poured myself a cup of black tea, and watched the sunset from our apartment window. Cade had strung fairy lights across the balcony. They blinked softly against the night sky. For once, I didn't feel like explaining myself. But they did. My mom's name appeared on my phone 3 days later. I stared at it, ignored it. An hour later, my dad. Ignored again. Then came a knock. Not on the door, on my past. A courier delivered a thick envelope. No return address. Inside, a typed letter. We understand now. We were wrong. But it's hard to lose a daughter over pride. Your sister's not speaking to us either. Please talk to us. No apology. Just positioning. Like they were the real victims now. I placed the letter back into the envelope and tucked it in a drawer I no longer opened. That same evening, my sister, the bride whose spotlight I supposedly stole, messaged me for the first time since the lawsuit. It wasn't what I expected. Hey, just watched your podcast. I'm sorry. I was too caught up in being the favorite to realize I was being used too. I miss you. For a second, I wanted to delete the message. But I didn't. I sat with it, then replied, simply, I miss who we were, before their version of love got in the way. She sent a photo back. It was from years ago. Both of us, in my old college dorm, eating frozen yogurt on the floor, laughing at something neither of us remembered. A memory that didn't belong to them. And for the first time in months, I smiled. The courthouse steps looked different this time. Not because they were less intimidating, but because I wasn't the one on trial anymore. This time, it was the judge calling out my parents publicly for filing a spiteful and frivolous lawsuit against their own daughter. Their lawyer kept glancing toward them, silently pleading for dignity. But pride dies loud. My father interrupted the ruling. I paid for her life until she was 18. She owes us. The judge raised a hand. You owe her an apology, he said flatly, and a dismissal. With that, it was over. No financial settlement. No damages granted. No clean win for anyone except peace. But the real verdict came weeks later, quietly. A scholarship fund was launched in my name. Not by me. By a stranger, a podcast listener who'd built her own business after surviving years of parental control. She named it the Monroe Fund. For every girl who's been told she doesn't deserve her own story. Emails followed. I left my toxic family after hearing your voice. I thought I was alone until I saw your courage. I finally feel seen. I didn't expect to be anyone's symbol. I just wanted to breathe without asking for permission. But maybe this was what healing looked like. Not noise. Not revenge. Just reclaiming what they tried to take. My voice. My future. My name. That night, Cade took me to the coast. No ring yet. No pressure. Just the air and quiet space. He looked over and said, I don't want to save you. I just want to witness you. I smiled through the wind. And for the first time in years, I believed I was whole.